All right, in this demo, I'm going to show how to do sentiment analysis, and I'm going to do it in two different ways. The first way I'll show is using the Big Insights console, and the second way will be to show an actual MapReduce job that I've written, and I will run from the Eclipse environment. So let's take a look at the console first, show you a couple of the features, such as the cluster status tab here, which shows us our nodes in our cluster, our processes in our cluster. It allows us to add and remove nodes. The Files tab is very important because this is our interface into the Hadoop file system. So you can see here HDFS. And I want to show you the file that I'm going to use for the sentiment analysis. So let's go down to my user, and here's the Big Bang Twitter.json. So I've already brought this file, this JSON file, which has the Twitter data in it, into my Hadoop file system. I used some of the controls up here to do that. And then the second thing that I did was I converted it to a sheet using one of the built-in readers that reads JSON and converts it to a spreadsheet. So I've already done that, and we will see that in a minute when I get to the Sheets tab. But let me show the Application Status tab before I do that. Now this is another interesting tab because this allows you to see your workflows and your jobs, your MapReduce jobs that are running in the system. You can see I've already run a couple of these sentiment analysis ones a little bit earlier. All right, let's go to the Sheets tab now, and this will be your first view of the spreadsheet capabilities inside the Big Insights console. This is called Big Sheets and allows us to work with this data, in this case Twitter data, that was in JSON format, now has been brought in, and we will work with it in a spreadsheet format. So let's go ahead and edit the data that I brought in. So this is the Big Bang Twitter data. And here you'll get a view of the spreadsheet. And so here is what looks a little bit more familiar now. If you're familiar with spreadsheet, we've got rows and we've got columns. And this indeed is the data coming from our source, in this case, twitter.com. Let's go to the far right here, and I'm going to show you the text that is essentially the tweet coming from Twitter. So we would look at this data in the text field, and we would kind of get an idea of the things that we want to look for or filter for or search on within this set of data. So looking for the sentiment, we look at words like love and crazy, great, ridiculous, really bad, things like that. And then what do they have these feelings for? What sort of feature? Well, one could be check card, overdraft fees, online banking, and so forth. Okay, so this gives us an idea of things that we might want to search on in the particular set of data. One thing I should note here is that when you're working in Sheets within this console, you are only seeing a subset of the data. Recall that the full set of data is very large, but when you're working in the spreadsheet, you'll be working with a smaller subset of the data, and then what you can do when you're done modifying the spreadsheet configuration, you can run that against the full set of data. All right, so let's show you some of that configuration. I'm going to add a sheet here to this collection, and I want to filter. You can see we've got a wealth of different operators here. First, I'm going to do a filter. It's going to create a new sheet within this collection, and I want to call this one likes, because these are going to be the things that they like. So essentially, it's going to search the text, and you see I'm choosing the text column here, which matches up with this one. The first thing I'm going to do is search there for the word like. Let's see what people like, or what people have tweeted that they like about Big Bang. Okay, you can see that we've come up with 3 of them in this subset of the data, and they're all very, very similar, different users. Actually, it looks like this one did it twice. But they all contain the word like, and in that case it also has to do with check card, which we'll get to in a minute. All right, let's add another one to that. Let's modify a little bit further. Let's get a little bit stronger in sentiment, and we'll choose the same field. So we've got the text field, and let's put the word love in here. So we know what they like. Let's see what they love. All right, so we've got several other entries in there that are, have the word love. So now we have the word like and we have the word love. Okay, I think you get the idea here. So here we're looking for positive sentiment. We would continue looking for all the different words that we think are positive regarding Big Bang. Now, let me show you how I'm going to search for the feature within that set of data. I'm going to add another sheet. And this time it's going to be a macro. And you'll see in a second here we have a wealth of macros that you can use to manipulate that data. I'm going to grab one of the text macros. I'm going to use no, not get group. I want just get match. All right, so first question is which field are you talking about? And I'm talking about the text field. And here it allows me to enter regular expressions. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say check guard is the thing that I'm going to scan that line of text for. And if that's part of that, then I want to, that'll be a positive selection on that group of text. But what I'm going to do here is a little bit different. I'm going to create, since I'm creating a new sheet here, and let me give this a name, by the way. It's meaningful. A better name. Okay. And let's call this likes with feature. Okay, so that's the name of the new sheet that I'm creating. And since I'm creating a new sheet, it needs to know if I want to carry over some of the columns from the previous sheet. And I do want to do that, so I'm going to say add all. And essentially what this will do now is create a sheet just like the last one, except it's going to have a new column. The default name is going to be the name of that macro, which was get match. And you can see here, since I was searching for check guards, some of these it's showing me in this particular field the actual feature. Now what I would probably do next is rename this column from get match to feature, because that makes more sense. For this particular column, but hopefully you get the idea here. So we've got the things that they like, we've got the things that they love, and now we know in this specific column right here which of those things, which of the features that they liked or they loved. Okay, so positive sentiment about a particular feature. So I would modify this again, and I would adapt that regular expression to include all the other features that we think people have positive sentiment about. All right, so that's all I'll do there. I'm going to get out of here. I won't save that because I've got another one I want to look at that I've defined even further, and I'll show you just some of the things that we've done with that. All right, let's go into edit on this one. All right, so you can see with this one I have indeed renamed that column to feature liked. And let's take a look at some of the rows of data that we have here. So the likes and dislikes, this is the original data. Here are likes. I'll show you how I flesh that out a little bit. Okay. Essentially, it's just adding more words that have positive sentiment. Wonderful, terrific, great, so forth. And here's dislikes. As you can imagine, this is just going to be a set of negative sentiment words: hate, crazy, ridiculous, horrible, bad, so on. And let's see, likes with feature. Let's take a look at this one and see what I did here. So for this one, I just fleshed out the regular expression a little bit. Check guard, looking for uppercase, lowercase, online banking, service reps, and so on. Okay, so I think you get the idea there. That's how I would go about analyzing this data and setting up this spreadsheet, and then again run this with the full set of data to get a view of that. Next thing I want to show is visualizing this data. So what we have here is the same set of data we were just looking at a second ago. And what I want to do is visualize in terms of the feature like, to get an idea of how popular certain features are about big banks. So here's the chart capability, and I could create a pie chart or any of the other types of charts, and I'm going to select that on the feature that they've liked. All right, so I won't run this one. I've actually done it right here, so I'm going to pull this up, and let me show you what I have here. So I've got a pie chart with that. This is positive sentiment at this point, and you can see the percentages. This one is the online banking, so 34% had something positive to say about online banking. 5.5% had something positive to say about the service reps, And finally, down here, we've got 60% of the people had something positive to say about CheckGuard. Okay, so I think you get the idea. So we're looking at big bank and the tweets that people have tweeted out there regarding the bank and the sentiment. In this case, we're looking at the positive sentiment. Okay, so that's how one would go about doing this inside the Big Insights console. And as you can see from what I just did, you don't have to have any Java skills. You don't have to have any MapReduce skills in order to do this. So what I'm going to do is contrast that with what you would have to do if you were doing this with Java and MapReduce and Hadoop. All right, so I've switched over to my Eclipse shell, and this is the Big Insights perspective, which you do have. So there are some nice capabilities here for the Java programmers who want to work in Java and write their own MapReduce jobs. And here I've got my sentiment analysis job, .java class, and we'll talk about that in a second. But note that one nice feature here is that I can actually run that job against my local server here, or a remote server for that matter. But I can run them right here from the Eclipse shell. So what I'm going to do is actually run this and then talk about the code for a second. All right, so I'll get that going. And meanwhile, I will look at the code for the job. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what one would do for a particular use case like this, looking at Twitter data. So, I mean, it's not a lot of code. It's only about 125 lines of code for this particular example. And I did basically the same things that I did in the console, in the Sheets console, where I'm looking for positive sentiment in this case. So it's not the most lengthy program, or it's not the most difficult, but you definitely need to know Java to do this. And you definitely need to know a little bit about Hadoop and MapReduce and some of the data types that you would use in that particular environment. So here's the bulk of the map step. So you can see my map method here, and I'm looking for those same sorts of words, the positive sentiment, like, great, wonderful, and terrific, as well as the feature such as CheckGuard, online banking, and service reps. All right, and finally, the next step would be the reduce step. So that was my mapper step. Now we're looking at the reduce step. Very, very simple. It's just summing the values coming into it and writing those out. All right, so that's basically it. Here's my main program, which sets up the MapReduce job and runs it. So that's basically it. Not a very long program, but you do need to know Java, and you do need to know something about MapReduce in order to do this. All right, so let's take a look at the results. Another one of the things you might need to do in this environment, you could use the console for this. To look at the output. Remember that files tab we looked at? Or you can do it from the command line. So here I'm running a Hadoop command to cat out the file, which is the results of the MapReduce job that I just ran. So here's the actual dataset, part R, with all these zeros. The R stands for the reduce output. So this is the reduce output. Let's run this command, and we should see the output from that job. All right, so the job has finished, and here's the output. The CheckGuard got 21. Again, I'm working on a very small subset of data here. Online banking got 12 hits. Service reps got 2 hits from my small set of input. And that's one thing that I didn't mention with this particular job. When I set this up in my run configuration, I specify the input data set. So here's my my input coming into the job, as well as the place where I want to put the results of that job, sentiment results. Okay, so that's gives you a little bit of an idea of the difference between running, coding up and actually running a MapReduce job in the Eclipse environment, and doing the same thing with the Big Sheets environment of the Big Insights console.